Hello. Welcome to Doc NYC's Spring Showcase, our mid-year celebration of documentary films and series. My name is Murtada Elfadl, and I'm a senior programmer at Doc NYC, and it's my pleasure to be speaking today with the team of the class from PBS. Hello, everyone.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hello.
Um, Excited to have you to talk about this documentary series. First, I wanted to ask, and feel free to jump in, whoever has the answer. I wanted to ask you about the origin of the series. What was the germ of the idea that started the class, and who had it, and how did it develop?
Yeah, we
I
can
think
start with
we can
that.
start with that. Well, we met Nicole Hurd, who's the executive producer of the series, back when we were screening our very first feature documentary, First Generation, which followed four seniors who were trying to be first in their families to go to college. And through that experience, we learned about her organization, College Advising Corps, which she founded, which puts recent college graduates into public high schools across the U.S. to help them navigate their journey to higher education. And for our follow-up project, we were like, that sounds like a really incredible story to follow a year in the life of a college advisor. And we started ideating this before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, it sort of just became this story that we felt really compelled to tell because we knew that coming out of the pandemic, which we thought would end in, after a few months, there would be an even greater need for college advisors, and we thought that story would be really compelling to follow.
Yeah. And can you tell me about Mr. Cam? What an amazing teacher and a fantastic protagonist for the series. So,
Yeah.
how did you find Mr. Cam?
He was incredible. So Nicole here with us, like she introduced us to College Advising Corps and all of these advisors. We started saying, "Hey, look, let's talk to advisors across the country." And this was really summertime of 2020, and we interviewed. We're based in Southern California, and we interviewed people all over the country. Some here in Southern California, in Texas, in New York, all over that were advisors that serve students at certain high schools. As the pandemic was going along, we realized that it was probably a better idea to stick closer to our home so that we could get there easily. And we had met Mr. Cam, who is based up in the Oakland area at a school called Deer Valley in Antioch High, or Deer Valley High in Antioch. And he was incredible. When we met him through Zoom, we were like, this guy's a superstar. So we instantly were intrigued by him. And Nicole, you can talk a little bit more about him because as you knew him before that.
Yeah, so, we had about 826 advisors across the country at the time. Cam stood out for all sorts of reasons. One being, and you'll see it when you watch the show, he's got this incredible dedication to the work. He's got this amazing way to connect with students. And part of it is because he's, and like all of our advisors, a near peer himself. So he actually went to Deer Valley High School, went off to community college, persisted and ended up at UCLA, and then was back home in Antioch, making sure that we all hear those four words we all need to hear, which is, I believe in you. And so he's got this incredible story himself. And then he got to say to these students, look, if I can do it, you can do it too. So there's something so compelling about all of our advisors, but in particular, Cam's story and Cam's ability to connect. I'm seeing David shake his head. David and I had some time. David was on the board of the College Advising Corps. We spent some time with Cam and advisors across the country together. There's something really special about Cam and his ability to really articulate a vision and bring people along.
David, did you want to add anything about Mr. Cam?
Oh yeah, I mean he's just an incredible human, and his connection to the work was so layered. He going back to the school that he came from is an amazing thing to do. So just the understanding of like the need to give back to community, and the understanding of sort of the advantages that going through the college process had given him, and wanting to make sure that other students from where he was from could have that. And then also on sort of a global level, him feeling like higher education is a social justice issue is always really important to him. And so him framing it that way really intentionally as part of his work, not just as as an interesting side effect of his work was made him, I think, a great person to be highlighted and to feature in this doc.
Yeah. And that sort of commitment to social justice in teaching shines through in the series. And also, it's not just because of him, but also the series shows Antioch and the community there of the students and their families. So maybe if you can talk about Antioch itself, like my husband grew up in Oakley, right across close to Antioch. So I was watching the series and he was sitting next to me and he's like, he started getting into it and he's like, this is felt like something, some place I really know and some people I really know. So maybe you can talk about the community of Antioch and how you incorporated it into the series so well.
That's so cool to hear.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we that was actually really important to us as we started working on this. That I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. Obviously, David is from the Bay Area, and for us, it was really important to give it a Bay Area vibe. We wanted the music to be from the Bay. We wanted to feel like we were in the East Bay, which is it's got a certain feel. And as we spent more time in Antioch specifically, we learned a lot about the town and the different areas of it and the different way that each area kind of connects to another one, and then the school as this central place where students are coming from all different parts of Antioch to this school. There's a lot of rich storytelling going on in there, and it is great to hear that someone from the area watched it and said this feels like me. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, as you said, it feels like home. And David, you're from the area, so can you maybe talk about your role in the series and how you added to that sort of like local feel of that specific place?
Oh, I mean, these guys had it down anyway. It's all in the footage. But one of the things that I love so much about it is just that I think it highlights some of the things that are really special about the Bay Area, and also things that are instructive for a lot of other places going through similar things. Antioch is one of these places that was experienced like a huge groundswell of new people there as prices started rising in places like Oakland and Berkeley in the East Bay, like more proper East Bay. Antioch's a little closer to Sacramento, so going further north, and the demographics of that place changed very, very quickly. And when you have one major public high school in a place like that, like it becomes this crazy melting pot of a lot of different kids from different like socioeconomic statuses, different ethnicities, different communities, and with family roots, like it from different places all over the Bay Area. And so that makes a really interesting place. And it reminded me a lot of Berkeley High School. I went to Berkeley High School. It was the same thing, the only public high school in a relatively big area. And so you get a lot of different kinds of students there. And so that was one of the things that I found really exciting about this project, is that I think we don't often pay enough attention to the kinds of community building that have to happen in these places by necessity. There are a lot of communities that end up being a lot more segregated than places like Antioch by virtue of having more than one high school, or by virtue of being like geographically larger than that. And so Antioch is one of these special places that force a bunch of people together, and you just got to deal with it, and I think that's what it makes for great television, but also makes for like kind of an instructive way on how we can sort of figure out how to live our lives together.
Yeah, I mean, the series does tell Mr. Camp's story and the students, but it also tells the story of that city and how the parents came and how they bought their houses. So it's an all-encompassing narrative, which makes me want to ask about the students themselves. So Jay and Adam, I'm sure you had lots of footage and you shot a lot. So can you sort of talk a little bit about honing in on which students you wanted to concentrate on, and how that came along as you were working, shooting or post in the editing process?
Yeah, so Mr. Cam worked with a large group of students, and when we first met with him, we interviewed all of the students in his group that would want to participate and whose families agreed and said, like, we want to be a part of this. And I think what was really interesting about this moment in time was that, if we recall, everything was shut down. People were feeling very isolated, and I think there was actually almost an eagerness to the students and the families and wanting to be a part of something and feeling like, here's an opportunity to share my story, my perspective, what's happening in the world right now. And so we're really grateful that we had a chance to meet a lot of students, and there's so much talent in Antioch, and there's so many rich stories that we feel very blessed that the students that we had the choices that we had, and we just fell in love with the 6 students that you meet in this series. And each one of them, as documentarians, you have no idea how a story, when you're doing a verite follow doc, how it's going to unfold. And so, as you progress through the series, it's really, I think, evident that these stories were the ones that were meant to be told, and we couldn't have scripted it. And so we just feel so grateful that as it unfolded, that we were able to be there to uplift their stories and really steward it to the screen.
And truthfully, we didn't know it was going to be a 6-part docuseries when we started, right? We were like, this is going to be a feature or some sort of documentary project that we're doing. And as everything happened with the school and the students and the COVID restrictions continuing, we were able to continue telling this story with the support of Nicole and David. They were like, keep going, keep going. And as we kind of laid this out, we're like you said, we have a lot of footage. We filmed 65 days over the course of a school year. School year is only 180 days, so we were there like a third of the time, and filming everything that these students did. And the students were so open and honest with us that we realized that because we have 6 episodes now, we can tell all 6 of these stories, compellingly, and like tell the whole entire story.
Yeah. And yeah, all the stories sort of feel complete. So I wanted to ask you, I don't want to say COVID was good, but it wasn't. But as sort of like a narrative, misdirection or swerve. Can you talk about that? Because I don't know this for sure, but I assume you didn't know when you started on this project that the students are going to be homeschooled and this is going to be over Zoom. So can you talk about that as a challenge and as something that you overcame, obviously?
Yeah, absolutely. We did not know. We thought it was going to be over, right?
The first day of filming, we showed up and...
Yeah, we were like, well, let's film on campus. We're meeting Mr. Cam. We're doing an interview with him on campus. And we sat down and we met the principal who we'd been on Zoom with and et cetera, and gotten all the rights to film there. And as we were setting up the first interview, the principal kind of chit-chatting with us, and she's like, so just so you know, the board met and decided that we're not going to go back to school right away. We're going to start online. And we freaked out and called Nicole. We're like, we're supposed to be filming students in their classroom. I don't know what we're going to do. They're not going to be in their classroom. But they assured us that, like, don't worry, we're probably going to be back in October, and watch the series and you'll see how that goes. So it was, that constant, like, we're going to go back, we're going to go back, we're going to go back story.
And then we were creatively, there's so many things that we were freaking out about, but one, COVID, like, how do we tell this story? We had like one idea of what we would do and how we would approach it, and with our small crew, and then to have us be told that, oh, we're actually not going to be on campus. Creatively, it's sort of just like threw all of our plans up in the air. And we're like, how do we make this compelling? Shooting Zoom meetings, they're never together. So that was really challenging. And we had to sort of go back to the drawing board of, what kind of cameras are we going to use? How are we going to, split our crew to make this feel like you're intimately like in the meetings with one another? And yeah, that was very challenging.
Yeah.
I think it created some intimacy in that you were able to concentrate on students while they were facing the camera, whether it's the Zoom camera or the other cameras. So for me, it created a little bit more intimacy and made me, as a member of the audience, get to know these students a little faster.
Oh, thank you.
And I think, all the freaking out aside, because this was not what we had planned. I do think you're right. There's an intimacy to it. I also think we wouldn't have been in their houses, right? We wouldn't have had as much time with their families. We wouldn't have had all that context. And context is so important in life. We don't always spend much time understanding context. I think we get a view that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise because of that. And I also think it really does allow us to tell a story where some of these inequities, some of these really hard things that are happening become even more heightened. And so I do think there is some power to the fact that we didn't back down, we kept filming, because it's allowing us now to talk about some things that are really clear because you see how heightened and how hard that was for all of us, but in particular, as coming of age during a pandemic, I just think it tells the story in a much deeper way than if we'd just been filming at a school.
Yeah, and we all lived through this, so we remember. I remember that, we're going to come back in a week or 2 weeks. We all thought so, right? So that to see that from the point of view of the students who's like, this is a very important year in their lives, kind of gives the series an added emotional context. So I want to ask about those emotional moments. So as we follow these 6 students with Mr. Cam and all of that, there are, like, I remember the moment of Raven getting the tuition, for example. That was a very emotional moment when he calls his mom to see. I don't want to give it away, but anyway, it's emotional. It's an emotional moment that sort of gives more depth to the series of, like, this is real people with real things that could change the course of their lives. So can you talk about sort of finding those moments and being attuned to that? Because you didn't know these things are going to happen. You're just following these people. So can you talk about your process in balancing finding, sort of like an emotional high moment like that with completing the rest of the story that you wanted to tell?
Yeah, man, go ahead. Go ahead.
I love that you pulled that out. That's one of my favorite moments of the series. And even just to say, we did not, I don't want to give too much away, but that day was a really special day for Raven and his mom, not just for the news that he received, but also because of what that was in their in the story of their family. And so for us to be there and for him to get that news on that day and to not even know, again, it's one of those moments like you can't script it. And so, or I guess you could script it, but then it wouldn't be real. So yeah, I don't know.
We filmed, I think that we go into most of our documentaries hoping that you're, especially a follow doc like this, where we're just going to live with these students and hopefully those things kind of show up. And some of the highs and lows that showed up while we were filming was kind of mind-blowing to us, and it actually was part of the reason why we said, okay, we're going to keep going through this, like we're going to keep filming, because the story of this person, oh, maybe this person's storyline isn't as deep as, like, oh no, this happened to it. We got to, like, follow everything that's going on with them. And so I think that, like, we try to be open to all of that. We show up and we run a pretty small crew. It's the two of us and like 3 other people. And often when we split crews, when we had to do that with this, where it was like one person was doing an interview or a Zoom call from one side and the other person was in another person's house doing a Zoom call from the other side, we would only be there with like 2 people. And I think that gives the cast an opportunity to just be more open and vulnerable. And we spent, hours and hours and hours just hanging out with them with all the cameras off and eating lunch and stuff like that. So I feel like we got to be part of their families. And like Nicole said, it's like we're in their homes, we're hanging out with them early in the morning when they're getting up. We say it's funny, like in the beginning of the series, you see the students looking all, as best they can professional when they sit down for their Zoom meeting. And then by the end, it's like you have the Zoom screen of them just like, because like they've gotten so used to us being there that they really are open, and we can tell those stories. And I think that we were just lucky to be there at the right moments. And we just filmed a lot, so luckily we had those moments show
the
up.
amount of time. And I think going back to, again, what we were all experiencing, this isolation and this lack of community, there was this sense that this was our little bubble and family and community. And so I think all of us, and although we've told many different documentaries, but this one was different in the sense that although the students were going through something very particular, everyone in the nation was going through this moment. And so we did feel this immediate connection that I don't think we would necessarily feel in other stories that we're telling. And I think that really brought us closer. And I'm glad that you felt that intimacy, because it felt that way to us too when we were there with the cameras.
Yeah, definitely. David and Nicole, do you want to talk a little bit about your role in sort of shaping these stories of the students to have this realistic sheen to them? Like they really they hit the heart, as they say.
Uh,
David, you go first. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I did so little in terms of actually shaping anything. I just got to watch everything that was happening and be like, this is fantastic, and feels honest and real. And but Jay and Adam and their crew and their editors did, and obviously the students and Mr. Cam being so open and generous with their time. That was it. And then putting it all together, and really after that was all done, it was like, and this is a crazy thing about it too. We had this finished documentary, and I live in Hollywood, and I was like, this is, and I go to a lot of meetings, and everybody's like, we just need stuff, we need stuff to get on the air, we need things, and I was like, I have a thing that's great, it's beautiful, actually, it's beautiful, it is honest, it tells a really important story, it's incredibly well done, and I started walking it around to every place in Hollywood, and everybody was like, I don't know. Are we really trying to talk about COVID though? And I was just like, it like broke my whole brain. I was like, you mean the thing that just happened? The thing that the literally the most universally relatable thing you can possibly think of. Everybody like was talking shit to me about 4 quadrant, blah, 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 blah. Like we need things that connect to different demographics. Motherfucker, COVID was it. That was it. We all did that. And here are these students like persevering through it, also in a moment that is one that we all lived through, being a teenager at this time, and like going through these moments. There's such an incredible kind of universal storytelling. It's so like hit the bullseye of exactly what I had always been told everybody was looking for, and nobody would touch it because everybody was trying to pretend that COVID didn't exist at the time. And so that was this like moment of deep frustration with my chosen profession. And then also but then also, the fact that everybody on here like just kept believing in it for the next 5 years, and then when it started to feel like, oh wait, maybe there's a this really important moment that we've ignored, and PBS swooped in and said, hey, this is an important story to tell. And we said, yes, we think so too. That's that's why we're still trying to tell it. And as frustrating as it was, I do think that things tend to happen for reasons, and and it feels really important now. And so like my role in it now is to just kind of be able to highlight those things about what was lost during that time, and like how important it is for us to look back at students who were really intentionally fighting in a way that they shouldn't. The honest truth of it is they shouldn't have had to. These things, it shouldn't be as hard anyway, and the way that communities were treated during the pandemic was not equal. And so watching these students have to go through this while I'm sitting on my couch drinking mimosas in the morning is like it's a good reminder of that we are not serving our young people well in this country, and making and zeroing in on that moment when we were all going through the same thing but having really, really different experiences, and watching kids who really had to fight for every scrap of it, I think it hits, for me, it hits particularly strong now. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think maybe all of us, including people who were making decisions in the industry about what to show, we were in the denial phase of trauma about the COVID. So I think now is a little few more years. It's time that people maybe can hopefully look back with this series and be able to see the emotional narrative of these students and Mr. Cam.
I hope so. I mean, I'll just double down on what my colleagues have said. Like, the four of us talked through this whole process, and David and I weren't there. The magic is Jay and Adam, and the students and Cam. But we did see the dailies, and we were talking all the time. And I mean, I think one of the things I want people to take away from this is life didn't stop. Like, I think there's this kind of belief that for a lot of people, isolation meant life stopped. You watch this life. I mean, there's trauma, there's death, there's hurt, there's real stuff. Like, life did not stop. And I think there's this, well, as a country, as a world, we are not spending the time trying to figure things out. And I am really concerned that we kind of said, that was hard, that was awful. Next, like, let's go back to normal. First of all, normal is not okay. It's back to the reason why we did this. There are stories to be told, and there are reasons why there are barriers that we need to address in this country. But the idea that we went through, 2 years of pandemic, and that empathy muscle absolutely atrophied. And we belong to each other in these really beautiful and profound ways. And so I think what I love about this documentary is, one, it reminds us that the empathy muscle did atrophy and we've got work to do. And it also reminds us those barriers didn't go away. As a matter of fact, they were worse. And now that we're back, they're still there. So there's some really hard lessons that I think we need to have reflect on in terms of who are we and how do we take care of each other and what does it mean to be in community. But I will say one of the joys of going through this together was to see the resilience. And frankly, when I watch now, I'm just in awe of how much Cam and those students kept going when a lot of the people wouldn't have.
Yeah. And that shows in the series for sure. Empathy, resilience. I think this is a good time, a good note to end on. I want to thank all of you. Please continue to enjoy the Spring Showcase programming at Duck NYC through June 13th. David, Jay, Adam, and Nicole, thank you so much.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you.